Tonight on The Story, a KGW investigation into a traveling show not for the faint of heart.
And this is an educational event. This is not a sideshow.
The company says it's totally legit. The county medical examiner says it's unethical and immoral.
I was appalled. In our profession, treating the deceased with the utmost respect is our top priority.
The main attraction, a live autopsy with a real corpse. It happened inside a Portland hotel. People paid hundreds to watch. Tonight, our investigation lets you form your own opinion on a pay-per-view autopsy. Here's The Story.
It is what it is. You can't make this stuff up. Good evening. I'm Maggie Vespa. Welcome to The Story. And like we said, we definitely want to hear from you. I mean, that's always the case, but tonight, as you can tell, is a very interesting show. So weigh in, definitely. Email thestory@kgw.com. Use that hashtag, TheStoryKGW. And with that said, let's get right to it. Okay, if you are squeamish or you're just eating dinner, you have about actually 15 seconds to change the channel. And I say that because our big story tonight is pretty graphic. Before the pandemic, it seemed like there was a convention or a trade show for almost everything, no matter how obscure. But a recent event in Portland raised serious questions after an organizer charged hundreds of dollars for attendees to watch an autopsy of a human corpse. It was part of something called the Oddities and Curiosity Expo. Here's investigative reporter Kyla Boshi.
The Portland Marriott downtown waterfront builds itself as a reimagined hotel with newly renovated event spaces for corporate meetings, family reunions, and wedding receptions. But on October 17th, the Portland Marriott hosted something far different: a live autopsy and dissection of a human corpse inside a hotel meeting room, despite strong objections from the Multnomah County medical examiner.
You know, hosting an event in a pay-per-view manner for a body donor who likely didn't consent to this is completely immoral and unethical.
The autopsy, organized by a media company called Death Science, was part of the Oddities and Curiosities Expo, a traveling show promoted for lovers of the strange, unusual, and bizarre. According to a Facebook post advertising the class, attendees could watch a full forensic autopsy or anatomical dissection of a real human cadaver. Tickets started at $250 each, with VIP seats going for $500. Video taken inside the Portland event by our sister station, King TV, shows more than 24 people watching the dissection of a human corpse, and at times given special access for a closer look.
I was appalled.
Multnomah County medical examiner Kim DeLeo tried to stop the event before it happened by calling police, the county attorney, and Oregon Medical Board, but none of them were able to step in.
That's terrible, and it does appear to be that an autopsy did take place.
So DeLeo contacted the hotel where the autopsy was originally scheduled to take place, the Courtyard by Marriott. And when management learned what was planned, they canceled.
In our profession, treating the deceased with the utmost respect is our top priority. And we feel that this was not respectful and certainly not ethical.
Event organizers at Death Science quickly changed location and moved the autopsy to the Portland Marriott downtown waterfront. The hotel general manager confirmed to KGW that staff at the Portland Marriott downtown waterfront spoke with a medical examiner prior to the event and understood her concerns, but didn't stand in the way, explaining, "This is a private event, so it puts us in a weird spot." In a follow-up email, the general manager explained, "We follow detailed protocols to protect safety, and we take appropriate steps to comply with applicable laws. We are aware of concerns regarding a recent event, and we're looking into them further."
Right, so it is safe, it is legal.
Jeremy Siliberto, founder of Death Science, said the Portland event was intended to help people explore the human body in a more intimate way by watching an anatomy expert dissect a corpse.
And this is an educational event. This is not a sideshow. This is very professional. This is exactly college level teaching.
The presenter, a retired anatomy professor from Montana, described the cadaver as an 86-year-old man who donated his body to science. Siliberto explained Death Science purchased the corpse through a company that acquires dead bodies and sells them for medical research and training.
I can guarantee that he knew his body would be used for medical education.
And that is what concerns the medical examiner, who questions how a body donated for research or education ends up in a hotel, surrounded by ticket holders who paid hundreds of dollars to watch.
I think what this does is makes families a little more hesitant to donate their bodies to science, because there will be a fear of can they be trusted with to respect my loved one's remains, or will they end up being autopsied in a hotel conference room?
We don't know much about this man who donated his corpse to science, except he appeared to have a pacemaker. At some point in life, had his gallbladder removed, and there was a tattoo on his arm. No name was ever given, making it difficult for us to find his family and ask if they were told about the Oddities and Curiosities Expo or the autopsy held in a hotel meeting room.
Okay, so all that in mind, Kyle Leboshi joins me now. Fascinating story, to say the least. I mean, I guess my first question, this was a one-time event in Portland, at least, or what do we know?
In Portland, there was a similar event scheduled for Seattle this coming weekend, but that's been canceled. It's not clear exactly why, although the promoter said he certainly hopes to expand this and maybe take it elsewhere.
Gotcha. We did have some people, and we've been talking about this behind the scenes for a few days now, because this story's been captivating everyone. And some people, even on our staff and people that we all know, wondered, people watch autopsies at medical schools, and they watch these, in college perhaps. So is this different? And you guys talked about that.
Well, I think the difference really is the setting here. This was part of an Oddities and Curiosities Expo, again in a hotel meeting room, available for people willing to pay hundreds of dollars to watch. It wasn't in an academic or medical setting, and that's really what bothered a lot of people, especially the medical examiner.
Yeah, and then to that point, you guys were able to find some people who went to this expo. So what did they think of it?
Really kind of mixed reviews from those in attendance. It was interesting. 3 people said they thought the event was actually quite informative and done in a respectful manner. But one person I spoke with by phone, a criminal justice student, said she regrets attending. She told me a few people in the audience were making jokes, and it wasn't the educational experience that she had really hoped for.
All right. Fascinating look, and I'm sure a lot of people will be talking about this, if nothing else. So Kyle Leboshi, thank you so much. We want to circle back now to last night's big story. It got a big response from you, our viewers. We took a look at the slew of homeless camps growing seemingly unchecked along Marine Drive in Northeast Portland. And I met up with 2 viewers of this show who had emailed us with specific concerns. Jim Carr worried homeless camps near a city well, Well 15, could contaminate Portland's drinking water. Now, the city assured us that cannot happen. The aquifers are solid, they say, and nearly 200 feet below ground. Then we talked to Mark Blanchard. He said he's almost been hit by cars on the 205 bike path near Marine Drive, and his sister-in-law found her stolen car, he says, at this camp. Now, both men say they believe most people out there on Marine Drive are actually genuinely struggling, and they're just really disappointed in their city. So in response to our story, Earl tweeted, "When I hear or read the reasons are complicated," talking about the city's reasons for not clearing these camps, that tells me that that person or group has no answer or is clueless. Mike wrote, "This area is an absolute disgrace. Visitors to our city arriving at the airport are greeted with this mess. What pollution is going into the Columbia River? This is an environmental disaster." Now, we also heard back from the city today, specifically Portland's Office of Management and Finance, or OMF. They are the office who literally decides which homeless camps to clear and when. And they want to make it doubly clear that the city only owns some pieces of land along Marine Drive. The Port of Portland owns a lot out there. There's Metro, there's ODOT, there are private owners, the list goes on. And if you're curious who owns which parcel, city reps want to make sure that you know that you can go to portlandmaps.com. Portlandmaps.com. This is it. This is how it works. You can zoom in, click on a piece of land. The info comes up, including the owner. Super easy. But here's the deal. The city is standing by their larger point that because different government agencies own different patches of land, dealing with this situation in any meaningful way is, as one rep said, problematic. So for those of you at home, because we hear from a lot of you, and you're sitting there and you're going, I really don't care who owns what. I just want the chaos along Marine Drive to stop. I want those unhoused people to get help, and I want the city to take care of this. It's not looking good. A rep for OMF told me earlier this week the city of Portland's ability to effectively remediate this area is quite limited. And she added the city's homelessness and urban camping impact reduction program in particular does not have the authority to intervene here. So again, that point, the city says, remains unchanged. Okay, switching gears, who's ready for election season? Not all at once now. Now I know it's supposed to be an off year for the big races, but the campaigns are already getting going and my blood pressure is already rising. So yesterday we aired our exclusive interview with former New York Times columnist Nick Kristof as he announced his run for governor of Oregon. His announcement got a lot of attention across media outlets in Oregon and nationally, and we got a comment from viewers Bill and Pat that I think probably went through in some form a lot of people's minds. They wrote, "Please give equal time to interviewing all the candidates running for governor as you did the man from Yamhill." I like how you described him. That was good. Bill and Pat, we appreciate it. And please know our newsroom has had several discussions, as we always do in instances like this, about how to cover this race and the many, many, many candidates who want to be Oregon's next governor. In fact, right now, literally dozens are running. By our count, there are at least 24 people who have officially declared that they're running. And by the way, it's tough to get all those photos on that screen, so shout out to our editing team. That field is, of course, going to be whittled down throughout the campaign and as we go through the primary election. But rest assured, we are paying attention to the candidates. So tonight, we want to talk about the Republican side, those vying to be Oregon's first GOP governor in nearly 40 years. 5 of them debated big issues at a forum in Bend this week. So we had our sister station there, KTVZ, send us their video of that event to show it to you here tonight.
For nearly 4 decades, Oregon's been led by a Democratic governor, but Republican candidates want to change that in 2022. Among the hopefuls, Bend's Brandon Merritt, one of 5 GOP candidates who met at the local Elks Lodge Wednesday.
Ultimately, I think it boils down to authenticity.
The 4 others include small business owner Amber Richardson, Baker City Mayor Carrie McQuiston, Alsea School Superintendent Mark Thielman, and conservative consultant Bridget Barton. Questions focused on topics like education, reproductive rights, taxes, and critical race theory, which we'll note is not taught in public K-12 schools in Oregon or Washington.
By executive order, I would ban critical race theory in schools immediately.
When CRT was brought to me by my staff many, many years ago, they said, "We got to do this." And I said, well, we could, but no.
Again, CRT is not taught in public schools. When it came to reproductive rights, all the candidates said they're pro-life.
If I go and have an abortion, I am not the one who dies. My baby would die. Your tax dollars should not be funding this.
Others, like Amber Richardson, say Oregon's high taxes are hurting the middle class.
I am a small business owner and I have been hurt very badly with a lot of these taxes and regulations. I also have to listen to a board, and with my board, they change it every 2 years. They give me another regulation or another fee.
And amid the ongoing pandemic, Merritt said he's done with mask and vaccine mandates.
The reality is we are coming out of this pandemic. And there's no science behind the fact that we're putting masks on children in their most vulnerable years of their lives.
Now, since we are talking about the Republican side of this race, I asked political science professor Jim Moore and our KGW political analyst about some of the factors that could influence people, voters basically, when choosing which candidate or even which party to vote for. And a big wild card, he said, is our former president.
The big thing this year that's different, and we don't know if it will go into 2022, is Donald Trump. Trump is going to be a major factor somehow, but we don't know how that is. So, for instance, you can see Donald Trump endorsing a lot of people in the general election a year from now, and that could either drive turnout for Republicans or it could drive turnout for Democrats against Republican candidates.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. By the way, the primary election is on May 17th. That's a little more than 6 months away. The top candidates from each party will then advance to the general on November 8th, 2022.
Portland's got a problem. Recently, its reputation took a pretty big hit. As one commissioner put it,
around the world, too many people associate Portland with homelessness and homicide.
Tough to bounce back from, huh? Some experts say you have no idea. This recovery could take years. When the story continues.
Welcome back. Keep sending in those questions and those comments to the story at kgw.com or use the hashtag #TheStoryKGW on Twitter. We're always checking your messages. And that being said, we get a lot of messages about this next topic. It probably won't surprise you, but Portland's reputation has taken a bit of a beating recently, to say the least. Last year, it was the protests and the riots, and now it's kind of homelessness and homicides combined. And as a result, organizations and companies that were thinking about holding big conventions here, bringing tourists and money along with them, are now looking elsewhere. Here's Keely Chalmers.
When many of us think of Portland, world-class restaurants, breathtaking scenery, and Soccer City, USA come to mind. The problem, for a lot of others, this is what they think of: civil unrest, public safety issues, and homelessness. At least that's what a recent tourism report by Travel Portland revealed. The agency presented its findings to Portland commissioners earlier this week.
Here's the problem. Around the world, too many people associate Portland with homelessness and homicide.
Commissioner Mingus Mapps is the city's tourism liaison. Like most commissioners, he was not surprised by the findings.
Today, a significant chunk of humanity is afraid of spending time and money in our city.
Portland's specific issues related to civil unrest and public safety concerns has exacerbated the negative occurrences of declining attendance and group cancellations.
That's Travel Portland President and CEO Jeff Miller. According to the city, in 2019, tourism supported about 36,000 jobs in the Portland metro area. In 2020, about 10,000 of those jobs disappeared, along with a lot of business.
Recovery is happening elsewhere, just not here.
Just doesn't seem like it's a safe situation for a lot of people.
Donald Kenny is owner of Spirit of 77, which depends a lot on tourism, especially from the nearby convention center. He worries what the pandemic plus Portland's not-so-pretty image will mean for business.
I mean, if there's a lot less people coming for conventions, that's a real impact to our business.
In the most recent iteration of this study, Portland has declined to the lowest levels of being a likely destination for delegates to attend the conference.
Miller says many conventions aren't wanting to come back to Portland, and it will likely take years for the city to convince them to come back.
All right, well, it wasn't uplifting, but I didn't expect it to be.
Mayor Ted Wheeler says the city is committed to addressing the public safety and homeless concerns, but until it does, it might have to put on hold some of its traditional bragging rights.
We're not ready for marketing. I'm not saying stop your marketing, but right now people don't buy it.
Keely Chalmers, KGW News.
Yikes. We know a lot of you have thoughts about Portland's image right now. Keep sending in those questions and comments. And, when we come back to this show, those warnings, we get them every single year. They've already started this year. Check your kids' Halloween candy for dangerous objects, the razor blades, the needles, the drugs. And now that marijuana is legal, police also say to look out for edibles disguised as candy. But how likely is that actually to happen? We'll talk about it when the story continues. Guys, keep those questions and comments coming to the story at kgw.com. And right now, I want to remind you about our Hey Help campaign. This week, we're asking you to consider donating to Urban Gleaners. They distribute thousands of pounds of free food directly to kids and families year-round. So to donate, just hold up your phone's camera to this QR code. It'll take you to the donation page, or you can just go to kgw.com/heyhelp. And while you're doing that, let's hear from Urban Gleaners founder and executive director Tracy Ossaran.
So we distribute through schools, through low-income housing complexes, through community centers, local community health centers. We don't want people to have to spend a huge bulk of their day trying to go somewhere to get some food. The need for food during COVID was very apparent. This was something that we, of course, had known about for a long time, but it was really brought to light.
Here's that QR code again. This is a micro donation drive, just like all of our drives. So feel free to give any amount, no matter how small. And by the way, Urban Gleaners also takes food donations at their warehouse in Southeast Portland. Okay. It is that time of year again when law enforcement agencies across the country start sending out dire warnings about terrible things in your kids' Halloween candy. This has already started this year, and nearly every single year, the week following Halloween, we get notices that someone found a needle or they found drugs in their kids' candy. But here's the thing, in almost every single case, these turn out to be a hoax. Like 3 years ago, when a couple in Washington County claimed they ate their kids' Halloween candy and then they got very sick. And the sheriff's office said the candy tested positive for meth. Again, that was 3 years ago. Since then, crickets. So this week, our team got curious and we followed up to see whatever happened with that meth in candy story. Well, the sheriff's office told us the case is unsolved and it's now closed. No word on whether the meth actually came from the Halloween candy. An expert, by the way, who has been studying this constant Halloween candy warning for decades, because apparently people do that, says this is an urban myth. Criminal justice professor Joel Best says he's found plenty of hoaxes to this end, but virtually no hard or gummy evidence of tainted Halloween candy. And by the way, he's been studying this since 1983.
I can't find any evidence that any child has ever been killed or seriously hurt by a contaminated treat picked up in the course of trick-or-treating.
Still, police departments put out these warnings every single year, telling parents to check their kids' Halloween candy. And that habit really ramped up when we started legalizing weed. Now, marijuana edibles have become the big fear. And we thought that seemed a little unlikely. For one thing, edibles are expensive, I'm told. They cost way more than candy. I don't know about you, but I don't know anyone who wants to shell out $20 for edibles at a dispensary and then just give that away to some kids in a cheap plastic mask. But, you know, who knows? I don't know. People do weird things when they're high. So for an expert opinion, we asked the owners of a local dispensary.
You know, I mean, it'd be $10 to $20 for something that you could buy for probably 25 cents. You know, and again, I hate to think that there's people out there that would want to do something malicious to a child, but if they were, there would be much more damage that they could do for much less. I just couldn't imagine somebody looking to use cannabis to give out to children.
Okay, so just some more info here. Both Oregon and Washington have pretty strict rules for how marijuana can be packaged when it's sold. It has to be in child-resistant packaging with a safety warning. It can't have anything, quote, attractive to minors like cartoons. And McKee says the industry is getting away from packaging edibles to look like regular snacks.
Oregon has very strict regulations and requirements for both labeling and packaging, and it's closely watched. Anything that can resemble too closely another, a commercial non-cannabis product, and they continued to not only monitor that, but really get stricter and stricter on that. And I think over the last couple of years, manufacturers that were kind of looking to mainstream brands to make their product look similar have gotten away from that.
So look, let's be clear. We just want you to have the facts. I mean, I'm not a parent. I can barely keep a plant alive. But so yeah, I mean, if you want to check your kids' Halloween candy, it's never a bad idea to just check the things that your kids get from strangers. And if they do accidentally consume THC, they could get pretty sick. We completely get the concern. But again, this stuff, meaning edibles, should be clearly labeled and sealed. If it's not, go ahead and throw it away. And overall, again, the warnings about drugs or blades or anything along those lines in candy, that's all largely an urban myth. And experts say you should worry about that about as much as you should worry about the boogeyman. All right, so keep sending in those questions and those comments to the story at kgw.com. We're going to finish the show right after this. Content for tomorrow. We appreciate it. Keep it coming. And by the way, follow us on Twitter at @TheStoryKGW. And as always, email thestory@kgw.com. That does it for this show. Let's bring in Laurel Porter now. Hey, Laurel.
Hey, Maggie, thank you. Coming up, there's been another outbreak of Legionnaire's disease, this time in the Beaverton area. What the public needs to know. The news at 6.